Hi, ladies. I hope you're having a wonderful day, a blessed morning, blessed afternoon, or evening. I just want to say thank you so much for listening today. Today's topic I'm going to be talking about is parents that have kids with autism, and if you find out your kid have autism, and just some other subjects on that particular topic as well. First, I just want to say get your kid diagnosed first, very early with autism. If you believe they have symptoms of autism, it's very vital and very important because you can get them into the programs that they need. Another thing I want to just say before I go any further, you're going to hear like some noise in the background. That is my son. He's 17 years old. He was diagnosed with autism when he was like 4 years old. And so normally when I record early in the morning when he's asleep, but I decided to record a little bit later, and I had the door closed, but he decided he wanted the door open. And so he opened the door, and I'm pretty sure it's because he heard me talking and saying his name. And I said his name twice in a previous recording I did. And so I delete that recording to do this one over because I felt like I forgot some very important things. One of them being is once you find out your kid has autism, don't start blaming yourself and the what ifs or what you did. You didn't do anything. Because a lot of the times what we do is when our kids are diagnosed with a disability, we try to figure out where it came from, or we try to blame ourselves. Do not blame yourself. It has nothing to do with you. The beautiful thing that you can provide for your kid is love as a parent. They're going to need understanding of the world and how the world works and how the world operates. And so that's the most important thing you want to do, is love your kid and educate them about what's going on in the world. So getting them checked early is a form of love. It's a form of love that that God wants you to give to your kid. And so when Father in Heaven opens the doors for things that you need for your child, and He's going to show you this is what you need, then follow that. Father in Heaven is going to give you the things you need to help raise your kid and make sure your kid is okay. So don't start beating yourself up and start thinking that you did something because your kid has autism. It has nothing to do with you. What you want to do is provide them with the help they need and the love they need. And patience is going to be the most important thing as a parent raising a kid with autism. Now, kids with autism have different degrees of autism. My son has limited verbal. But as you can see, like I said, you might hear some noise in the background and stuff. That's because he's in the kitchen getting him something to snack on, or he's going in the room to sit down and just take it easy, or look at a little TV. But he's very limited verbal, but he say words. He can do like certain things independently. But if I decide to leave the home and go somewhere, that is a no-no. I cannot leave him here at home by himself. He has to have someone sitting with him and caring for him 24 hours a day. He cannot be at home by himself. It's impossible. The blessing thing is I know that he's being taken care of, but I know on his face he wants more independency, but that is impossible with his disability. And so I always tell him, son, I know you would hope to stay home by yourself, but I already know if I do that, I'll come back and the house will be a wreck and he'll probably have the door open and be outside. Or if not outside, just getting into everything. But as I said, don't beat yourself up about that, because your kid will develop at the stage and at the progress that God wants them to develop at. And no matter if they got diagnosed with autism, their healing process of them being disabled and being able to do stuff will be at the process and the steps that God wants them to be at in determining the help that you get for them. There is a lot of kids in the world that have autism. Some start off with not talking, and then eventually they start talking and saying full verbal words. My son is just he's very smart when it comes to so many things. Like when his dad used to sing when we would go to church, he would either play the drums or the piano to his father's melody of his voice. And and you would swear that he had lessons, but he didn't. So my thing is, don't beat yourself up about what your kid has gotten diagnosed with. What you want to do is give them love and support and the things they need help with. And one of the most important things they need help with is getting diagnosed with autism very early and getting the help they need. Second subject I wanted to touch on are parents who feel like they can't go out and enjoy time with their kid. I have come across some parents who have made a decision to not go out and do activity with their kid because their kid has autism. Let me tell you about some stories, and then I'll tell you what some parents have shared with me or some people have told me about that. When our son was very little, me and my husband and my mom made sure that our son got out early. My son didn't get diagnosed with autism until way after my mother passed. My mother passed away like 2 years before he got diagnosed. But we kept going to a lot of places with him. And I was always like a person growing up. My mom and I was very active in going out and doing things like movies or going to the beach or just doing things, going out to eat, just enjoying life. And that was something that I want to do with my son. And so I consistently did that with my son when he was little. And the age that he is now, where we live at now, I couldn't do it as much when my husband got sick. My son was from the ages of, I think, 12 to 14. When he was younger than that, he went to Knott's Berry Farm, Disneyland, Universal Studios, any activity that me and my husband and his brother, my stepson, which is my husband's kid from a previous marriage, we would all do that together and enjoy ourselves. And no matter that he was diagnosed with autism, it was something that we had already made up in our mind that we were going to treat our son just as normal like any other kid. And the mistake what parents do, not mistake, but I'm just going to say for me, what I didn't want to do was just shelter him. He has to understand how the world operates and how the world is. And he can't be confined because you feel like you don't want nobody to know that your kid is either disabled or you're afraid your kid is going to act up. Here's the thing you have to look at. If you keep someone confined, it's the same thing, not the same thing, but I'm just going to say, like, don't take it in a negative way. But I knew of someone who had, I would just say in general, if you just keep someone confined, I'm just going to say, like, I know of an animal that was confined a lot, not like locked up in a bad situation, but the person would keep the animal on the patio. And once they would let the animal in the house, the animal would like go everywhere and run around like losing their mind. Now, kids are not the same as animals. I don't want you to take that as a bad way. I just wanted to use that as an example. It's just like if you have a person who is just confined to the house, if they're ill or sick, and then eventually they get out and do stuff because their body is able to do more things. They're going to do more things. But when you have a kid who is disabled, who has autism, and you're deciding to keep them confined and decide that you don't want them outside the house because you're nervous that they're going to act up. First of all, if you don't take them to a restaurant, they've never been to a restaurant before, they're going to explore it. And they have autism. They're very curious about everything because everything is new to them. And if they're little, that's normal. The part that a lot of parents that I find that do that, they keep forgetting that their kid is very little. And also, kids are going to be kids. They're going to look around and find and see what's going on. And the reason I talk about that topic is when I went to go and pick up my husband from rehabilitation center when he was alive, we met this lady who was one of the workers there that was caring for him and doing his paperwork. She happened to see that we have a son with autism, and she was like, "He has autism?" And we were like, "Yeah." And she was like, "He doesn't seem like he have autism." But it was because he was sitting down being patient. He was just looking, and he saw his dad. And then when he said he had to go to the bathroom, I showed him where the bathroom was, and I stood outside the door. And as soon as he came from the, because he was still a little younger, and I didn't want him, getting confused where the room was. But he went to the bathroom, and then he came back in. No, I have to correct myself. The bathroom was in my husband's, the room where they had him. So he went to the bathroom. And so I was just sitting down because the bathroom was in the room where my husband was. And then he came out and he sat back in the chair that he was sitting in. And I was sitting, the lady was like, "Well, he went to the bathroom and then he just sat right where he was before, and he's just sitting there and not getting into things. He's not running all over the place." And she was asking, she pulled me aside and she said, "I have a relative who have a daughter who she doesn't go out the house with because her daughter get into things. And I have been talking to her and telling her she needs to let her daughter go out and do things. And I was telling her that's something you have to encourage her to do, because she shouldn't keep her confined to the house, because that's just not good. Your kids need to get out and explore the world just like any other kid. Don't shelter them because of their disability. They need to understand the world. There's so many kids with disabilities that are just doing so wonderfully and proving people in so many ways wrong who doubted them because of their disability. My son is disabled, yes. But my son, he knows right from wrong. He understands things. And he likes going out and enjoying himself. And that's something that you don't want to do, is keep them confined to the home. That's just not good, because you feel like they're going to be an embarrassment when you go out. Don't do that. That's not good. Another thing I just wanted to talk about too is I find some parents feel like they shouldn't discipline their kid. I don't want to discipline my kid with a belt because they have autism. I came across some parents like that when my son was in elementary. We would have like an IEP meeting or a meeting just with up-to-date information. It wouldn't even be an IEP. It would be like the teacher, Mrs. Cole, would do this meet and greet thing. I think it was like every 3 months, just to keep us up to date what's going on. And like she would send us like a calendar, a breakdown of information, or a paper chart, or I think it was like a paper of a daily sheet activity, and so we would know what they were doing and what their behavior was in class that day. And so she would send it home like every day. Like she would have like a different one in my son's backpack. And so when we went to do this meet and greet, I had found that 2 parents was in there just really strictly didn't believe in whooping their kids, because they felt like because they had autism, it doesn't make any sense to whoop them. But then they want to know why their kids were acting up. No, you need to discipline your kids and whoop them. If they understand what yes and no mean and what whooping mean, especially when you take out the belt and they start running, and they are like, and you tell them don't do that, and they don't do that anymore. And then they might do it like in 3 or 2 more months, they might do it. But if your kid understands right from wrong and discipline, you need to start disciplining them. Don't sit there and make a choice not to do it just because they have autism. That's a bad decision. You need to discipline your kids so they can understand, so they can't hurt themselves, and so that they will understand what they should not be doing and what they should be doing. From the time our son was very young, me and my husband disciplined our son, because we needed him to know right from wrong. We didn't want him to grow up thinking that he can just do anything he wanted to do. That was just not a good decision to do. So make sure you discipline your kid, or either if you don't want to whoop them, punishment. as far as taking like a toy they like to play with. We used to do that with our son. And then also timeout is another thing. If your kid will stay in the room when you put him in timeout, do that. Because I know with our son, he would do that. We would put him in the room, close the door, not lock it, don't lock it. Just put him in the room, say sit down for about 3-4 minutes or 5 minutes, and then come back and check and see what they're doing. And they can be in their room, do whatever. Or if you feel like they just need to sit still, but that's impossible. Kids get into stuff. So if they're in their room, they're going to be getting into their toys. But half the time, they don't want to be confined in their room. I know for me, I didn't want to. My mother would put me on a punishment. I didn't want to be in my room. I didn't want to be in the house. My mother had put me on a punishment almost for 2 months. Not 2 months, but a month. And it wasn't because of nothing I did really bad. It was because I was not supposed to go outside because I had bad report card. And she came home from work early as a surprise to me. And she saw me sitting outside talking to one of my friends. And I ran in the house like she didn't see me. And when she got in there, she saw me. So she had already saw me. And then she put me on punishment for a whole entire month almost. But then she limited it down to 2 weeks. So for them, no matter just them, but kids in general, but for kids with autism, I know with my son, he hated being in his room. I would close the door and leave him in there, like, he would be in there for about 4 or 5 minutes. And he'd open the door and look out, like, is it ready, time to come out? And sometimes you feel sorry, come on out. And sometimes you're like, no, 1 more minute. And he didn't want to be in there. This is when he was very little. And then when he got older, I was doing punishment still. But he was also getting spankings before that. And so right now, if I talk to my son about something, sit down, don't do that, leave that alone, he will go sit down. I want to also just touch on, just have a loving heart for your kid and pray over any situation that is so difficult that you feel like you can't handle. Ask God to tell you what to do, because that's how I did with anything concerning my son. I went to God first. I would go to God because I need God help. Now, I would say in the beginning, I would just get like frustrated and mad, and then I start saying, Father Heaven, I really need your help, and helping me with what I need to do, because my son is acting out and I'm getting very stressful. And this was happening like a little bit after my husband passed away. Now, before my husband passed away, I just want to touch on dealing with difficult situations when you're taking care of your child with autism. Now, there are going to come times where things are going to get hard, and you have to stay strong. And your kid will have a behavior that you might not be used to him or she having. And you want to stay strong and prayerful in how to handle that particular behavior that they have. And you want to allow God to guide you and tell you what you should be doing, because God in heaven is going to tell you how to handle it. When I was caring for my husband and being his caregiver, it was very, very difficult raising our son and then taking care of his dad. My husband needed help to the bathroom and back and forth. He needed me to help him get dressed, and he also needed me to help him get him into the tub. And then I also had to fix him something to eat, and then fix myself something to eat, and fix our son something to eat. And so that was like I was taking care of 2 people who had different disabilities. Now, my son would be able to go to the bathroom by himself. He didn't even go to take him to the bathroom, but he needed me to run his water and help him get in the tub because he was still very, very young. And because I was giving attention a lot more to his dad, and his dad was ill, he was also affected by his father being sick and not being able to do things with him like you used to. He started boo-booing over the house. And then he would do the same thing at school. But I hadn't told his teachers what was going on at home. And then his teachers wrote me and said, well, Jonah's starting to use the bathroom over himself at school. Is there any changes at home? And I had realized I forgot to tell them. And it's very vital when you have any major changes that you tell the school. It's very, 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 very vital. But if you're dealing with something that's very stressful, pray on it and ask God to give you the strength to deal with it. I was able to handle cleaning up my son boo-booing on the floor. And the reason I was able to handle that is because I was caring for his father. And so any mess or spillage or anything his dad did, I had to just tell myself, put your gloves on, your husband needs your help. And then I was able to do the same thing with my son. But it started becoming so overwhelming to the point that I had almost passed out a couple of times. And the blessing thing was my aunt called me one day and she said, I need a place to stay. I want to come and stay with you. Can I stay with you? And then she said, I'll help you with any help you need. And she definitely did. She came and stayed with me and my husband and helped me and my husband out a lot because I really, really, really needed the help. And right till this day, she no longer stays with me, but right till this day, she's just very helpful with anything I need help with. And I always make sure that she's okay. So this year I made sure that she had a relaxing birthday, rent her out a room where she can just enjoy herself and not just stress out. But it was just such a blessing to have her be there for me and my husband when my husband was alive and to help me with so much. And then she's still very helpful, and it's a blessing, and I wanted to be a help to her, you know. And so when you're going through something stressful and you're taking care of a kid that has a disability, it's okay to ask for help. That's a lot of times where we become very, I'm going to self-absorb, do it myself. No, ask for help and accept the help if somebody want to help you. I had a lot of people helping me when my husband was sick, and a lot of people asking to help. Because at first I tried to do everything on my own. And you don't want to do that. Because God had to open up my eyes and tell me, stop trying to do everything on your own. Let these people help you. And so I started just being happy to get the help that I really, really needed from people who really wanted to help me. Because it was very difficult. Like I said, my son was using the bathroom over himself. And so God will open up doors where he will make sure that you're okay. My aunt was washing clothes for us, helping me with the clothing, washing clothes, helping me with cooking, helping me with groceries, helping me clean. Because I was just wore out. I would just get up after a while, just cook what I could, and then take care of my son and my husband. It was overwhelming. And then my body was exhausted from all of it. And then I was dealing with low iron issues. I had issues where my iron was kind of just very, very low. And so I had to start focusing on my iron issues and making sure I was getting the protein I needed for my low iron. And so my thing is, that's one part of when you're dealing with something stressful. But keep in mind that your kids know what you're going through. Even though your kid might have autism, your kid knows what you're going through. Don't zone them out thinking they don't know. When I was going through stressful situations trying to take care of my husband and my son would come to me and he would rub me on the shoulder. And that's when I start realizing he's paying attention to what mommy is going through. And when he has a concern for me, he will say, "You okay?" Making sure I was okay. When I came to the graduation this year, when he was graduating, I was dealing with just some other stuff that I've shared with you guys that just had me like really frustrated with that. But God just came through and removed all that. As soon as I came to his graduation, first thing he said, you okay? He kept standing up looking at me. You okay? And I said, I'm okay, son. You enjoy your day. They understand. And don't count them out about opposite sex. My son has been attracted to the opposite sex females ever since he was, my lips just don't want to move, since he was a little bitty kid. There was one incident that we went to my cousin's graduation, and I still have a picture of that graduation, and my son was very little. And this lady was sitting in front of us, and I remember him patting her on the butt. And I said, don't do that. And he's always been attracted to the opposite sex. And so just because they have a disability, don't zero them out like they don't know between female and male, because they do. Right this day, even when we went to Universal Studios, I had to get on him a couple of times because there was some very pretty girls that was sitting behind us, and he kept looking at them. I was like, Jonah, don't do that, because people don't understand. The reason I told him don't do that, because some people don't really understand right away that they have autism, or either they might think he's a pervert. And I don't want them to think that he's just looking at their face, oh, they're cute and stuff like that. My son is very limited verbal. I know he gets frustrated with me, trying to still act like he doesn't know certain things, but he knows a lot. He knows a lot. And so when you get your kid into school, make sure you stand up for the things they need. If you feel like they need an aid, ask for an aid, a one-on-one aid that will be with them, because that's what my son had in high school. And the reason that he had an aid in high school is because I'll just tell you this, and it was just very frustrating. The kids in the county where I live at, for a minute, they were keeping them all in this school, which was really for elementaries and halfway middle school. Okay? I think the school went up to 7th grade. Not even 8th, just 7th. And so my son was in that school past the year that he was supposed to be in there. He was supposed to be in the 9th and the 10th. He wasn't supposed to be he's supposed to be in the 8th and the 9th by the time he was still there. And I remember that I had told him, I said, I want him to start going to junior high. And they was like, well, we don't have a program for junior high school kids for autism. I said, listen, I need my son out of the school because he's starting to get frustrated, because he would come home and being frustrated. And he wasn't the only one. There was another young lady whose son was going to the school that I know, and I know her son. We were having like the same issues, like, okay, they're not putting them in programs. They don't have the kids are just not being active like they used to. They used to have where they would take them to either to pumpkin patch or to go out to eat or just field trips, and they had stopped doing that, and they wasn't even participating in plays or going to see the plays. They would just leave them in the class or have them have a private section. And it just wasn't working. And so me and some other parents just became very unhappy with it until change was made. And so if you feel like there's a need for change in your kids' class and some things they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing, then do that. They should not have the kids confined to a class where they're not going out to the plays and the music and the auditorium, but every so often, and it just wasn't right. And so eventually they changed it for what program it was under. It started off under Unified School District for kids with autism, and then it went into the county, and the county decided they wanted to control it in a certain way. And so the kids wasn't getting all the benefits that they needed in the class. And so my son became very frustrated with that, and I had already spoken to special education. What is? I can't think it is right now, but special education superintendent, spoken to him and had explained to him that I want my son to be in junior high. Well, my son is just show you how God do things in his own timing. After I talked to them about that, immediately my son started acting up in class. And they called me and said, we're going to have to send him home because he started disrupting in the class. And so they sent him home, and at that point I didn't know if he was going to be able to go what school they were going to put him in, because I had already been told that there was no high school or junior high school, and at this time he was ready to go to high school. Then after a while they called me and told me, listen, we got a aide for him that's going to be with him in high school, and he's going to go to high school. And so I was so happy to hear that. Once my son got into the grade where he was supposed to be in, the school he was originally supposed to be in, he was acting so different and so relaxed. And then it was all new to him that he was not on the school bus, because the ride that he was taking so long. And the school where we live at is like about 3 minutes away in the school van. And he was in a class, started a class with just all boys. And that was very new to him. And then he was with kids his own age. And at first I was panicky about it, but after a while, no. Because he was acting different. He was a totally different kid. He wasn't the same. Just really, really, really different. Not the same. And so when you feel like there's something that needs to change for your kid, go ahead and do it. Don't become nervous and scared and afraid. Oh my God, I don't want this to happen. Your kid needs the education they need to prosper further in the direction God wants them to prosper. They can't prosper if they're stuck and stagnated in one section all their life. So make sure that you do all the things that God is telling you to do. And when I couldn't make it to school, I would pray to God that someone was there watching over him. And it was someone watching over him. Another parent who had a son that was in the same class as my son. And when we started talking, she's like, yeah, I used to see your son. I used to watch over him. And that showed you God had already opened the door and said, I have somebody watching over him. Because at one point, I'm talking about when he was in elementary, out after we moved out here, being out here for about 2-3 years. Well, a little bit after my husband got ill, I couldn't get down there. I was so drained with taking care of my husband, I couldn't get down there. So God find ways of opening doors in different ways. But don't be discouraged when you find out your kid has autism. Don't beat yourself up when you find out your kid has autism. Don't keep them confined in the house when you find out they have autism. Don't be afraid to discipline them. If you don't believe in like spankings, then decide that, okay, I'm going to take one of their toys, or decide to do a timeout. Or what I used to do, and what my husband used to do with his son from his first wife, who doesn't have autism, turn the TV off. That's what I used to do with my son. I used to turn the TV off, everything, because they're going to look at the TV, especially if they're into TV. Now it's funny, my son is not even into TV that much. He does look at it, but not as much as he used to. He barely watches TV. So I just wanted to share that with you, and I hope that this helps someone who really needs to stay encouraged, and don't allow anything that's stressful. Like I said, if you hear any noise in the background, it is my son. He decided to open up the door. He heard his name a couple of times for a report the first time, and so that's him. But don't keep your kid confined to your home. Don't be afraid to discipline them, and don't beat yourself up. Don't feel like your kid's disability is going to limit them from the life God wants them to have. So have a blessed night and evening or morning. God bless.